Quotations from myself, segment 39, quotation number 460. One of the unexpected consequences of the relatively recent expansion of the university education is a drastic reduction in the number of intellectuals espousing unorthodox, let alone revolutionary ideas. The lack of the new ideas has been ostensibly lamented lately, without developing yet, unfortunately, any consensus as to the causes of such a regrettable state of affairs. The reason behind this seemingly paradoxical phenomenon, the inverse proportion between the quantity of education and quality of ideas, lies in the relationship in which an individual intellectual, the main producer of ideas, and the educational institution, his main employer, with absolute power to accept or reject him, stand to each other at any particular point in history. The post-Second World War period has been characterized by the ever-increasing demand for the higher education. This has led, especially in the 60s and 70s, to the creation of many new universities and to the expansion of the old ones, which naturally has brought about an ever-increasing demand for the teaching personnel. As a result, a large number of intellectuals who would have been marginalized were employed by this institution, causing in the process the inevitable domestication of the potential subversives. Simply stated, one who has finally obtained the highly coveted secure position in the educational hierarchy, the position that guarantees its occupant a rather comfortable middle-class standard of living, in addition to the power and prestige of the professor, is much less inclined to rock the boat of any establishment, particularly the educational one he is part of, than the marginal outsider. For the university, despite professing in idea the academic and intellectual freedom, in reality are not much different structurally from any other social institution. That is, they encourage and reward conformity and look rather severely down upon those who resist it. And so, if not behind the solemn facades of university, where else should we look for the new unorthodox idea? On the margin, as usual, of course. And who would be their producer? The same marginal outsider, rejected and despised, often suppressed, or, what is even worse, for an intellectual, intentionally ignored. For in order to have the new unorthodox or even revolutionary ideas, it is absolutely imperative, from the psychological point of view, to have people who have nothing to lose by producing them, who are also moved in doing that by the enlightened self-interest, so to speak, without necessarily being fully or even partially conscious of their motivation, and who finally are sufficiently angry with the present status quo, which has no place for them, save on the margins. Them who have nothing more to lose, beware of, for they tell the truth. That is why, for example, Jews and homosexuals, the two most visible and thus traditional categories of the outsiders, contain such a disproportionate to their absolute numbers amount of producer of the new unorthodox ideas, especially in the field of political science, psychology, arts, etc. The areas of the most intimate reflection upon the relationship between an individual and a society. On the other hand, as history shows, almost any revolutionary, especially of intellectual kind, could be and had been bought by providing him with what he is really longing for the most, the acceptance. And we should never forget that accepting Hitler as a student into Art Academy in Vienna would have been the infinitesimally small price to pay to save the lives of tens of millions who had perished amid the agony and horrors of the Second World War. And what are these new ideas anyway, if not the new ways of allowing the outsider to get in? Consequently, one of the regrettable outcomes of a perfect world, in which allegedly everyone would be in, will be not only the absence of new ideas, but no need for them at all. For wouldn't everybody be finally happy then, or would they? Number 461. Man is the only animal who can utilize his pain and suffering as the raw material to create something useful out of it. And nobody has been as skillful in doing this as the Jews, who as a people have practiced this unique human craft longer than anybody else, creating in the process two religions, politico-economic ideology, and psychological theory, to name the most famous ones, all with the sole objective, yet to be realized, to free men from pain and suffering. A vicious circle, perhaps, but is there a way out of it? 462. Yet another difference between the successful and unsuccessful people. The successful one never bothered to talk, let alone to think, about somebody else's problems. Number 463. Every morning from today until the end of your life, after waking up, ask yourself, am I living the way I would have liked to live? Am I doing what I would have liked to do? And if the answer is no, the next question must be, how would I have liked to live, and what would I have liked to do? And no matter how many mornings will it take, do not give up trying until you find the answer to these most important questions in your life. Then after you did, the next no less important question should be, what can I do to make it come true? And when you find the answer to that one, which is not going to be an easier either, start each new day doing something about it. Otherwise your life is not worth living, and you would have probably been better off not having been born at all. So remember, from now on until the end of your life, every morning. 464. I am as complex as the next person, no more, no less. But unlike many, I am not hiding my complexity behind a two-dimensional mask to help the others to deal with me. Of course, it's much easier to live with, or perhaps to handle is the most appropriate term, the two-dimensional people. They can be conveniently classified, pigeonholed, and labeled. They may be expected, therefore, to act, most of the time, in a reasonably predictable fashion, no nasty surprises, no shocks. But unless pressured into such a shallow self-simplification, this is not what people intrinsically are, and it is most certainly not what I am. For I am not willing to limit myself to one mode of behavior, one interest, one profession, one ideology, etc., and to deny the obvious fact that I am a complex being, a whole made up of many different parts, some of which can be perceived as contradictory, but most are clearly complementary. In short, I am what I am, take it or leave it. Sadly, the majority, mostly out of nothing more malicious than the average intellectual laziness, would rather not take. So be it. It is their loss if they prefer the bland to the colorful, the one-sided to multidimensional, the boring to the exciting.